on using a strategy that helps us analyze characters in a text. So we're going to use this to help us annotate and learn more about characters as we read. So we know that we use our genre-based thinking jobs when we annotate, but I want us to use this steal in conjunction with those, especially when we're thinking about who are our characters and what are they like. So what we're going to do is we're going to learn a little bit about this strategy. So steal is what we use for indirect characterization. We know that indirect characterization is whenever the author shows us what the character is like rather than telling us what the character is like. So let's go ahead and let's learn a little bit more about steal. So what is characterization? Characterization is simply how an author describes characters in order to make them come to life. So a character that is described well can seem very real to us. It might remind you of someone you know. You make connections with these characters. Most of the time when we fall in love with a book or we really enjoy reading something, it's because the author has really great characterization. They use indirect characterization really well. It helps us understand and make connections to the people we're reading about. So we talk about, you keep hearing me say indirect and direct. Now, what is that? Here's the definition. Direct characterization, the author tells the reader what the character is like. So they will tell me, Ben was the bravest boy in the history of Sanders. So I don't have to do any inferencing. I don't have to learn about anything that he's done. The author is just telling me straight up, he's brave, right? But when a author uses indirect characterization, the author is showing me rather than telling me. He is showing me what the character is like. So here's an example. Ben barely flinched as his arm scraped the broken glass window and he pulled the baby from the burning car to safety, right? So instead of saying Ben was brave, they showed me how he acted, right? He saw that something was on fire. He pulled the baby out. It says he barely flinched, right? So his action, he wasn't scared at all. He just went in and he got the baby and he's a hero, showing that he is super brave. So over here, I want you to look at this. This is really important. Indirect characterization tends to be more interesting and descriptive, right? So it requires you to infer. You have to make an inference about the text, about the characters in the text. So whenever we do our annotations, you always hear me say, annotate to the characteristics. So that is something that we've struggled with a little bit. Like if it's not told directly to us, we kind of struggle with putting a characteristic on someone as we read. You guys do really well when you're asked that question, but in terms of finding all these different examples of who these characters are is something we struggle with. So that's why we're going to start using STEAL. So STEAL is the acronym. It stands for the different tools authors use, and we're going to get into that here in a second. So let's go to the next page. So the S in STEAL stands for says. So what does the character say? A character's words can say a lot about who they are as a person, how they speak. Maybe we'll learn, are they cynical? Maybe everything that they say is real negative, right? Maybe they're optimistic. Everything they say is hopeful, glass half full kind of person. Maybe they have attitudes, or they're unfocused. Like that's one of the examples here below. It says, it's not due till tomorrow. I have plenty of time to write my essay. I'll do it after this show. Maybe dinner. Later, Mom, for sure. So let's look at this. It's due tomorrow, but it's a whole essay. Does he really have plenty of time? No. But this character's saying that he has a lot of time. So we're going to make the inference that if he has an entire essay to write and he wants to watch a show first, he wants to eat dinner before he even begins it, and it's due tomorrow, we can say that this character is unfocused or he procrastinates. He put things off, right? So our check for understanding, I want you to write this down on a piece of paper. You're going to turn it in at the end, right? So, are you okay, Sam? Is there anything I can bring you? This character is asking someone how they feel. We're going to go over these answers at the end. I want you to pause this video and I want you to tell me, what do you think this characteristic is? T. T stands for thinks. A character's thoughts and feelings show what's going on in their mind, and it can reveal quite a bit about them. It also, especially in the book that we're about to read, our narrator is also a character in the story, and we learn a lot about what she's thinking. Okay, so thoughts in T is going to be really important, especially for that narrator of this text we're going to be reading. So these thoughts and the feelings, they tell us a lot about who they are as a person. Maybe they reveal what they think they should do or how they're viewed by other people. So look at our example. Coach chose him to start over me. That's just a joke. There are go our chances of taking home the trophy. So this person thinks that they're the best, right? How are they going to choose that person over me when I'm the best person for the job? So this trait shows that they might be a little selfish. They think that they're better than everyone else. Maybe they're conceited. So again, we're going to do this check for understanding. We will come back to it to review it. You're going to write it down for me. My throat closed and I could feel tears welling up in my eyes. This can't be happening, I silently screamed. What trait does this show? E, effect on others. How a character makes others feel. So this is one that you have to do a lot of inferencing, right? So you have to think about, how does this person make other people feel? So you have to think about what other people's might be saying, what they might be thinking about someone, maybe their actions related to something that this character does. So how our character makes others feel tells a lot about them as a person. The effect can be positive. Everyone loves being around Jill. Or it can be negative. Be careful, he'll stab you in the back. Maybe you don't want to be around them, kind of thing. So how they affect others is really important. So look at our example here. Anytime there was a group project, the class wanted to have Kayla in their group. They knew that with her in their group, an A was almost guaranteed. So if people want Kayla in their group because they know that they'll get an A if she's there, this trait suggests that people think that she is smart and hardworking because they want her there because she's going to make sure they have an A. So our check for understanding. When Brian walked onto the basketball court, the other team groaned and their coach began nervously biting his fingernails. What does this suggest about Brian? How is he affecting the other team? I want you to pause the video, write it down. We will come back. A, actions. This one's pretty obvious. What they do, how they do it. This helps us make a judgment about them. So action reveals their attitudes and their feelings. So let's look at our example. When Matt thought the store clerk wasn't looking, he grabbed the Snickers bar and slid it into his pocket. So this suggests that Matt might be a thief. He's dishonest, right? He didn't take it right in front of the store clerk. That would suggest he's bold. But he waited until the clerk wasn't looking so that he could sneakily put it in his pocket. So that's another trait. He's sneaky. He's dishonest because stealing is a dishonest thing to do. So our check for understanding. Riva smiled and slid half of her sandwich across the lunch table to the new girl whose mother had forgotten to pack a lunch. So what does this suggest about Riva? She's going to give up half of her lunch to a new girl at the table. What does this suggest about her? And lastly, we have looks. A character's appearance can reveal their interest and what they value in life. So this one's a little bit more complicated. I think this is one of the more advanced things to look at because you have to make a lot of connections when you're talking about how looks relate to who a person is. Okay, so let's look at our example. The scar from the accident made a jagged path from her mouth to her ear, but Joan never covered it up or apologized for it. She wore the symbol of survival proudly. So she doesn't cover up her scar. She lets it be shown, right? This trait shows that she's confident, right? She doesn't hide it behind makeup. She's proud of it. She wears it. It also suggests that maybe she's a survivor, right? She went through something really bad, really hard, and now she's proud that she wears it as a symbol that she's proud that she made it through something so difficult. So look at our check for understanding. Gordon was rarely seen without sneakers on his feet, a duffel bag for practice slung over his shoulder, and a giant bottle of Gatorade in his hands. So, what does this suggest about Gordon? So, remember, we talk about what their hobbies might be, what their experiences are. Based on his looks, what can we assume about Gordon? What can we infer about Gordon? So, let me come over here. Let's go back up to our answers. I'm going to give them to you. So, are you okay, Sam? This suggests the trait you might have written down was that caring, considerate, right? This shows that they care about other people. They consider what other people might need. Thinks. This particular check for understanding, we're looking at this bottom one here. The trait could have been that she's fearful or nervous. The effect on others, our check for understanding, when Brian walked onto the basketball court, the other team groaned. This suggests that he's really good at basketball. Maybe he's a star player. So he's hardworking, he's really talented, great basketball player. Actions. This also shows that she's considerate. She's giving half of her sandwich. She's caring. Maybe she's selfless. That would be a good one. She's selfless, meaning she could have eaten the whole sandwich. Maybe she's still hungry, but instead of eating the whole sandwich, she's giving the girl across from her half of it so that she's not hungry. We can suggest that based on the looks described here, Gordon's athletic, right? He always has sneakers, he's got a duffel bag on, and a bottle of Gatorade. So this one, I assume some of us probably named a specific sport, but when we're talking about a trait, right, this doesn't tell me that he played basketball. It just suggests that he's athletic. He plays some type of sport. And if you play sports, you're typically someone who is athletic. Okay, so let's go over here. This is going to be your, actually, never mind. We're not going to do that part because we have reading and it's going to take you a little while because this is our first day using Steel. So we're going to go ahead and stop here. I want you to watch the next video. And in the next video, you guys are going to begin reading our book, One Crazy Summer.